All right, guys, so what we're talking about today in Chapter 3, we're starting Chapter 3 today. Chapter 3 is going to be covering quadratics. Now, what we covered in Chapter 2 was also quadratic equations, quadratic functions. But with that, we're mostly looking at the equation and the properties of the quadratics, the vertex, focus, directrix, going from one form to the other. Quadratics, Chapter 3, we're going to start actually looking at solving, being able to solve quadratic equations, finding the values of x that's going to make the function be 0, and actually looking more at solving it. Now, the main form that quadratic equations are going to come in is ax squared plus bx plus c. And one of the main ways that we can solve it is by factoring. And when we factor, we're going to rewrite it from ax squared plus bx plus c into a more factored form. Normally, it's going to be two sets of parentheses with three spaces. Now, there's going to be 5 main steps with factoring. The first step is going to be greatest common factor. We're wanting to look at the 3 terms. We're wanting to look at the quadratic equation and see, is there a greatest common factor between the 2 or 3 terms, between the terms? If there is, we'll factor it out. If that first term is negative, we want to factor that negative out. We want that a term, that first, the x squared term, to be positive. So greatest common factor, if a is negative, we're going to factor out the negative. That's the first step. Second step, we're going to write 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now, the 3 spaces, main goal of that is to make sure the parentheses are wide enough so that we can fit all of our terms in, our first factor, the first and third term, and our signs. Our third step is to find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. So if the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Yeah. Now that brings us to step number 4. Step number 4 is to find the factors of the first and third terms. And lastly, step number 5, plug in those factors of the first and third terms and check and make sure we have the correct setup. And check in correct setup, all we're doing is multiplying it back through, seeing, do we get back from where we started? Now we're going to look at the first one here, 5x squared plus 15x plus 10. Now the first term is positive, so we don't have to worry about signs, trying to get a negative out, but we need to see, is there a greatest common factor between 5x squared, 10x, or 15x and 10? Is there a number that goes into 5, 15, and 10? 5. So the first thing we can do is factor 5 out of all 3 terms, because if there is a greatest common factor, we're going to factor it out.
You're needed in your classroom. Mary Denny, you're needed in your classroom.
So if we factor 5 out of 5x squared, we divide it by 5. The 5 divided by 5 would be 1, leaving us with x squared. Now, since we're not messing with signs, we're not factoring a negative out, our middle term is still going to be positive. But we're factoring the 5 out of 15. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So we have 3, still have the x. Third term is still going to be positive. But we factor 5 out of 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Since there was a greatest common factor of 5, we factored it out. We pulled it out. We divided it out of all three terms, leaving us with 5 times x squared plus 3x plus 2. Our second step is to rewrite this with, or write 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. So we're going to end up factoring this to 2 sets of parentheses. Find the sign is going to be our next step. The sign is going to go in both sets of parentheses. Now, if the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. So here our third term is positive, so the signs are going to be the same and match the sign of the middle term. And since the middle term is also positive, it means the signs in both sets of parentheses is going to be positive. So plus and plus. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. Questions on steps 1 through 3. Step number 4 is to find the factors of the first and third term. Our first term is x squared, and the only factors of x squared are x and x. Our third term is 2. So we need to find the factors of 2, and the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So, questions on how we found the factors of the first and third term? Now, at this point here, we just need to pick one of those factors and plug it in. Now, x squared, the only factors are x and x, so we're just going to plug it in. Factors of 2, the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2. And at this point here, we're just going to plug it in because our last step is, after we plug it in, is to check and make sure we get the right factors. Now, some books and some places say we need to multiply the whole thing out. I'm not a big fan of multiplying this x plus 1 and x plus 2 all the way out to see if we have the correct factors. Partly because x times x is x squared, yes? Or where did we get x and x from? X squared, the first spots in both of those are the factors of the first term, yes? Well, by definition of factors, they should multiply together to give us x squared. That's going to work every single time. The other one I don't check is the last spots. 1 times 2 is 2. Well, where did we get 1 and 2? They're the factors of 2, so they should multiply together to be that last spot. They're the factors of it. So I'm not worried about those. The one I'm concerned about is the middle term, and we get the middle term from our outer and inner. So we multiply this out. X times 2 is going to be positive 2x. 1 times x is going to be positive x. And 2x plus x is 3x. 2 plus 1 is 3, yes? Is that the middle term we wanted? Well, yeah, the middle term we wanted is 3x. Because we're not looking back at the 15 because we factored that 5 out. So we're really looking at 3. Because that factor of 5 that would give us 15 is already at the front. Questions on how we got to this here? Get ready for the next one. That's it. That's factored. Because it's not asking us to do anything besides to factor it down. 4x squared plus 32x plus 60. Is there a number that goes into all three terms? 2 does, but there might be one bigger. 4. Because 4 will go into 4x squared, 32x, and 60. Because we're really dividing it out. 4x squared divided by 4 is going to be x squared. 32x divided by 4, 32 divided by 4 is 8x. Now we can't plug 32 x divided by 4, but I can say 32 divided by 4, and the calculator will tell us it's 8. The last one we have is 60 divided by 4. When we factor 4 out of 60, and we're left with 15. So there was a greatest common factor of 4. We factored it out, which means we can go on to step number 2, which is writing our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now, since we did have a greatest common factor, it's going to stay out in front the rest of the time. It is part of the factoring. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, the third term is positive, so the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, which is positive. So our signs for our middle terms are going to be plus and plus. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. So we're looking first at the factors of x squared, yes? So what's the only thing that multiplies together to give us x squared? X and x. Is there anything else? No. So we could write it out. We could say x squared, put a line, say x and x. But we know that x and x have to go in the first spots, yes? So why not put them in? If there's only one option, might as well just stick it in because it's going to have to go there eventually. Factors of 15. We might have more than one. We have 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. Now this is the first one we've had so far. That's had more than one factor for one of the two terms, yes? Pick one. 3 and 5. Because at this point, it really doesn't matter which one it is. And the reason for that is because our last step after we plug it in is to check. Now again, we don't have to check our first term because x times x is still x squared. 3 times 5 is still 15. That is still the first and third terms. If we check the middle term, x times 5 is positive 5x. 3 times x is positive 3x. And 5x plus 3x is 8x, because they're going to combine together to give us the middle term. We're just not writing out our x times x is x squared plus 5x plus 3x plus 15. We're not writing the whole thing out. We're just writing those middle terms, because that's the one that's going to change, depending on the setup. Now 8x is the middle term we wanted, yes? So 4 times x plus 3 times x plus 5 is the correct factored form of this here. Questions on this here? We ready for the next one? 4x squared plus 13x plus 3. Is there a greatest common factor between 4, 13, and 3? No, because the only numbers that go into 4 are 1, 2, and 4. 1 doesn't really matter for greatest common factor. 2 and 4 doesn't divide into all 3. And since the first term is positive, we don't have to worry about negatives. So we can just move on to step 2. 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now, we move on to step 3, find the signs. The third term is positive, so the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. The middle term is positive, so we'll have plus and plus. Now this brings us to step number 4, factors of the first and third term. Well, our first term is what? 4x squared, yes? 4 has multiple factors, but I know the x squared is going to have to be what? X and x. Our factors of 4 are 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Now I could have said factors of 4x squared are 1x and 4x, and then 2x and 2x. But if we notice, whichever one we pick, X is going to have to be a part of both of them, yes? So at that point, I might as well just throw the X's in the first spots because that's where it's going to go, and just worry about the factors of 4. 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? 2 and 2. Now we also need to find the factors of the third term, which are the factors of 3. Well, the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. And at this point here, might as well just plug it in, check and see if we have the correct middle term. Now 2x times 3, positive 2x times positive 3 is going to be positive 6x. 1 times 2x is going to be positive 2x. And 6x plus 2x is 8x. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. Now one thing we could try doing is taking the 1 and 3 and having them switch places, which would give us what? 2x times 1 is 2x. 3 times 2x is plus 6x, which still gives us 8x. Why didn't it change? Well, it's because the first term is what? 2x and 2x. There's no real difference between that there. So what do we need to do next? Since 2 and 2 didn't work, we need to switch it to 1 and 4. Do we want to put the 4 with the first x or the second x? Second one. And we can try this again. X times 1 is going to be positive 1x. Positive 3 times 4x is going to be plus 12x. And x plus 12x is 13x. Is that the middle term we wanted? So these here are the correct set of factors. Question? Now, for a lot of these here, we're going to have to try multiple times to try to get there. Now, if that had not given us the correct middle term, the next thing we could have done is switch the 1 and 3 and try it again. Questions on any of this here? Are you ready for the next one? 3x squared minus 7x plus 2. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? No. And since there is no greatest common factor, we just move on to step number 2. Our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. What's our sign for our third term? Positive. So the signs of the statement are going to match the sign of the middle term. Since the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, so our signs are going to both be negative. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. So we have 3x squared. Well, the only factors of x squared are going to be x and x, yes? What are the factors of 3? 1 and 3. So one of these is going to be 1x and the other is going to be 3x. Does it matter which one I put the 1 and which one I put the 3? Not at this point. We just got to put 1 in. We got to set it up and try it. Factors of 2. 1 and 2. Do we want to put the 2 with the 3x or the 2 with the 1x? Yeah, we can put it with the 1x. Put the 1 with the 3x. And we can check this here. 3x times negative 2. 3 times negative 2 would be negative 6x. Negative 1 times x would be negative x. Negative 6x minus x is negative 7x. Is that the middle term we wanted? Mm-hmm. So those are the correct factors. Even though we didn't check it, we don't really need to. 3x times x is still 3x squared. X times x is x squared. 3 times 1 is 3. That works. Negative 1 times negative 2, the negative times the negative is a positive. 1 times 2 is still 2. Beginner plus 2. Questions on this here? Two x squared plus 7x plus 6. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? No. So we'll have our two sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Here, the third term is positive, so the signs are the same and going to match the sign of the middle term. And the sign of our middle term is positive, so we'd have plus and plus. Finish. Now we need to look at the factors of the first and third term. Well, our first term is 2x squared, yes? Well, the only factors of x squared are x and x. Factors of 2, 1 and 2, and that's it, yes? We can plug x and x in. Hey, only factors of 2, 2 and 1. We can stick the 2 and 1 in spots. Factors of 6. 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Now there's more than one here, so we're going to need to figure out which one we want to look at. 1 and 6 or 2 and 3? Which one do we want to try first? What do y'all think? Because you got vote for each. 2 and 3. Now I'm going to put the 2 in the first spot. And check this here. Unfortunately, this one doesn't work. 2x times 3 is going to be positive 6x. Now 2 times x is going to be plus 2x. 6x plus 2x is 8x. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. Now one thing that's interesting with this setup is if we look at the first set of terms here, 2x plus 2, is there a greatest common factor between 2x and 2? Yeah, there's a greatest common factor of 2. And with greatest common factors, because there's a common factor of 2, even though it's already in parentheses, we can factor that 2 out because we're just removing that 2 from it, because we could still multiply it back into that parentheses by 2, giving us 2x plus 2. But now we have a greatest common factor out front, yes? What is their greatest common factor to begin with? Well, 2x squared, 7x, and 6 do not have a common factor. So should there be one in one of the parentheses? Well, no. Now, even if we don't see it or see how that works, that's perfectly fine. Because as we saw here, we checked it. It did not give us the correct middle term, so we knew it didn't work. Now, we'll go back to 2 and 3 here in a second. I just want to look at this one here, 2x plus 6 times x plus 1. Will this one work? No, 2x and 6 have a common factor of 2. So 2x and 6 should not be able to go together, and this would also give us 8x. But the one I would look at next before 1 and 6, I'd still flip the 2 and 3. See if this gives us something different. 2x times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and we still have our x. 3 times x is going to be positive 3x. 4x plus 3x is 7x. Is that the middle term we wanted? It is. So 2x plus 3 times x plus 1. X plus 2. Sorry. 2x plus 3 times x plus 2. Questions on this here? We're starting to get the hang of these a little bit. two sets of parentheses with three spaces, because there is no greatest common factor between these three terms, yes? Now we need to look at the signs. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, the third term is positive, so the signs are the same.
I can look at that, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Like three at once.
All right. Third term's positive, so the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, which is negative. So we'd have negative and negative. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. Well, 4x squared, well, we know the x squared is going to have to be x and x. Now the factors of 4, we have more than one of them, so we can't just plug it in. We have 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Which one do we want to try first? 2 and 2. Now the factors of 3 are 1 and 3. Are there any other factors for 3? No. Since there's only one set of factors, might as well just throw them in. And again, we don't have to check 2x times 2x, because 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is still x squared. 4x squared, that's still our first term. Negative 1 times negative 3. The negative and negative make a positive. 1 times 3 is 3. We still get plus 3. Now, if we look at this here, 2x times negative 3 would be negative 6x. 1 times negative 2x is negative 2x. And negative 6x minus 2x, negative 6 minus 2 is going to be negative 8. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. Now, at this point here, we could switch the 1 and 3, but that won't change much because of the 2x and 2x. It's going to give us the same multiplication. Are there any other factors with our third term? No. So that means we have to change our x terms from 2 and 2 to 4 and. Do we want to put the 4 with the first x or the second x? Second. And we can try again. X times negative 3 would be negative 3x. Negative 1 times 4x would be negative. And negative 3x minus 4x would be negative 7x, which would be our correct middle term. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? All right. I believe that leaves us with 2 left, this one and one more. So the first thing we would look for is the greatest common factor between 2x squared, 5x, and 7. Is there one? No, so we'll have 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, yes? Is the third term positive? If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. So what that means is one of them is going to be positive, one of them is going to be negative. Now at this point here, does it matter which one I said is plus and which one minus? No, because the last step is to check and make sure we have it right. Questions on steps 1 through 3 before we look at step number 4. Factors of the first and third term. Well, our first term is 2x squared, yes? Well, I know x squared has to be x and x. Now, if the x squared term had been in the third term, that means the x and x would go in the third spots of each set of parentheses. It just changes where it's located. Factors of 2 are 2 and 1, yes? So I could say 2x and then write 1x. I just need to put 2 in one of them. So we can put 2 here. Now you can put the 1 there. Really doesn't matter because 1x or x is understood to be the same thing. Factors of our third term, we're going to look at the factors of 7. And the factors of 7 are what? 1 and? Are there any other factors? Do we want to put the 7 with the 2 or with the x? The x. Last thing we need to do is to check. 2x times negative 7. 2 times negative 7 would be negative 14x. 1 times x would be plus x. Negative 14x plus x. Negative 14 plus 1 is going to be negative 13x. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. So we can switch the 1 and 2 or 7 and 1. I'm just going to switch 7 and 1. And try this again. 2x times negative 1 would be negative 2x. 7 times x is going to be positive 7x. And negative 2x plus 7x, 7x minus 2. X would be 5x, yes? Is that the middle term we wanted? No, but yes, right? Because the middle term number we wanted is 5, but we want it to be what? Negative, not positive. So the way to fix that is to switch the signs. Luckily, changing a negative to a positive is just adding one line. Changing the positive to a negative is just switching it from plus to minus. Questions on this here? Question, anything we've done so far? We have the last one, 3x squared minus 7x minus 6. This is our greatest common factor between these three terms. No, I kind of gave it away at this point. Third term is positive or negative? So the signs are going to be opposite. They're going to be different. One of them is going to be plus, and the other is going to be minus. Now at this point here, we need to find the factors of the first and third term. First term is 3x squared. Well, x squared we know is going to have to be x and x. Factors of 3 are 3 and 1, 1 and 3. Now we could have written it out to the side that we have x, 3x and x. Really, that's it. Or we can just throw that in. Factors of 6. Yes. 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Which one do we want to try first? 1 and 6. Now 3x times negative 6 is going to be negative 18x. 1 times x is plus x, giving us negative 17x. We could switch the 1 and 6 and try it again. But this most likely is not going to work because we did not have a greatest common factor, and 3x and 6x have a common factor of 3. I'm going to go on and check it anyways. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. 6 times x is plus 6x, giving us a positive 3x. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. So we can switch the 1 and 6 for 2 and 3. 2 or 3 going with the 3x. 2 and 3. 3x times negative 3 is going to be negative 9x. 2 times x is going to be plus 2x. And negative 9x plus 2x, negative 9 plus 2 would be negative 7. Is that the correct middle term? So 3x plus 2 times x minus 3 are the factors. Questions on this?
The two sets of parentheses are like switched right now.
Yes, because even if we wrote it as x minus 3 times 2x plus 2, that's fine, because we can multiply any two things in any order. Yeah. Yep, that works just fine. That's it. 8 problems.